Imagine a place where vibrant colors dance in the streets, yet shadows linger just beyond the light. Bangladesh, a land of stunning contrast, holds secrets that few have dared to uncover. As I wander through bustling markets, the aroma of spices fills the air. But what lies beneath this tapestry of life? Have you ever wondered how a nation with such rich culture grapples with challenges that often go unseen? Picture yourself in a village where laughter echoes, yet the struggle for survival is a daily reality. Can you feel the heartbeat of a country teetering between tradition and modernity? Every corner you turn, every face you meet tells a story, some uplifting, others heart-wrenching. What drives the spirit of its people in the face of adversity? As I journey deeper into this inside of Bangladesh, the layers begin to peel away. Are you ready to explore the untold stories that shape this incredible nation? Stay with me as we embark on a captivating adventure, revealing the beauty and the struggles that define Bangladesh in ways you've never imagined. Let's dive in and uncover the truth together. Working conditions in factories. Walking through the bustling streets of Dhaka, you can't help but notice the factories lined up like soldiers, each one churning out clothing for the global market. As I step inside one of these factories, the atmosphere changes dramatically. The air is thick with humidity, and the sound of sewing machines clattering fills my ears. The working conditions here are a far cry from what many might expect. Workers, often young women, labor for long hours, sometimes exceeding 12 a day for a meager wage that barely covers their basic needs. It's a grim reality that many choose to overlook. The factory owners often prioritize profit over the well-being of their employees. I've seen workers standing in cramped spaces, their faces etched with fatigue, as they stitch together garments that will soon adorn the mannequins of high-end stores abroad. The lack of proper ventilation and safety measures is alarming. Just a few months ago, a fire broke out in a nearby factory, claiming lives due to locked exits and inadequate fire safety protocols. The implications of these working conditions extend beyond the factory walls. Families depend on these incomes, and when a worker is injured or unable to work, the entire household suffers. I've talked to several workers who express their fears about job security, especially when they know they can be replaced easily. The cycle of poverty is relentless, and many are trapped in it, forced to accept these conditions as the norm. The struggles don't end with long hours and low pay. There's also the constant threat of exploitation. Workers often face verbal abuse and intimidation from supervisors, making it difficult to voice concerns about their treatment. I remember speaking to a woman who had been with the same factory for years. She told me how she had witnessed her colleagues being mistreated, but the fear of losing their jobs silenced them. It's a heartbreaking reality, one that needs to change. The international community has begun to take notice, but the changes are slow and often superficial. While some companies have pledged to improve working conditions, the implementation of these promises is inconsistent. Until the voices of the workers are heard and their rights respected, the cycle of exploitation will continue, and the factories will remain the same. Socioeconomic inequality. The disparities between the classes in Bangladesh are stark and palpable. As I wander through different neighborhoods, the contrast is shocking. In affluent areas, you see high-rise buildings and luxury cars, while just a few streets away, makeshift homes made of tin and plywood house families struggling to survive. This stark divide is a daily reminder of the systemic issues that plague the country. Access to basic services like healthcare and education is heavily influenced by one's socioeconomic status. I've met families who live in poverty, unable to send their children to school. The cost of education, even at the most basic level, can be prohibitive for many. The government has made efforts to provide free education, but the quality often falls short, leaving families feeling trapped in a cycle of ignorance and limited opportunities. Healthcare is another area where inequality rears its ugly head. In wealthier neighborhoods, you find modern clinics and hospitals, while the poor often rely on overcrowded public facilities, where the quality of care is questionable at best. I've witnessed families resorting to traditional medicine because they can't afford the bus fare to a proper hospital. The fear of falling ill is palpable among those living in poverty, knowing that a single medical emergency can lead to financial ruin. This inequality breeds resentment and frustration, especially among the youth. I've talked to young people who feel they have no future because of the circumstances they were born into. They see their wealthier peers accessing opportunities that seem unattainable for them. This sense of hopelessness can lead to social unrest, and it's something that the government needs to address urgently. Addressing socioeconomic inequality is not only a moral imperative, but also crucial for the country's stability. Until there is a concerted effort to level the playing field, the chasm between the rich and the poor will only widen, creating a society fraught with tension and discontent. Local culture and traditions. Bangladesh is a country rich in culture and traditions, yet so much of it remains misunderstood or ignored by the Western media. As I delve deeper into the local customs, I realize how vibrant and diverse they are. From the colorful festivals celebrating the Bengali New Year to the intricate art of jamdani weaving, each aspect of culture tells a story that deserves to be shared. However, the portrayal of Bangladesh in international media often focuses on poverty and disaster, neglecting the beauty and resilience of its people. I've attended local festivals where families come together to celebrate, share food, and enjoy music. It's a stark contrast to the narratives of hopelessness that are often broadcasted. There's so much more beneath the surface, and it's a disservice to reduce a nation to a mere statistic. The traditions here are not just relics of the past. They are living practices that continue to shape the identity of the people. I've had the privilege of witnessing traditional dance performances that embody centuries of history and storytelling. Yet, these traditions are at risk of being overshadowed by globalization. Young people are increasingly drawn to Western influences, and while it's essential to embrace progress, there's a danger of losing touch with one's roots. Moreover, many cultural practices are intertwined with the daily lives of the people. For instance, the way families celebrate weddings or honor the deceased speaks volumes about their values and beliefs. Understanding these rituals offers a glimpse into the heart of Bangladeshi society. When I share these experiences with friends abroad, they are often surprised to learn that there's so much more to Bangladesh than what they see on the news. To genuinely appreciate Bangladesh, one must look beyond the surface and engage with its culture. By doing so, we can foster a deeper understanding and appreciation for the people and their traditions, paving the way for more respectful and informed dialogues about the country. Impact of climate change. Bangladesh is at the front line of climate change, and it's impossible to ignore the impact it has on the lives of its people. As I travel through the countryside, I am struck by the vulnerability of communities living in low-lying areas. Rising sea levels and increased flooding are not just statistics. They are real threats to the homes and livelihoods of millions. I've met farmers who have lost their crops due to salinity intrusion, forcing them to abandon their ancestral lands. Cyclones are becoming more frequent and intense, leaving devastation in their wake. I remember visiting a village that had recently been hit by a storm. The destruction was heart-wrenching. Homes were reduced to rubble, and families were left with nothing. The resilience of the people is inspiring, but the constant battle against nature takes a toll. They rebuild, but the fear of the next disaster looms large, and it feels like an endless cycle of recovery and loss. The impact of climate change also extends to daily life. Water scarcity is increasingly common as droughts disrupt the supply of clean water. I've spoken to families who walk miles just to fetch water for their basic needs. The struggle for resources is exacerbated by the growing population, making it even more challenging for communities to adapt. Despite the dire situation, there are efforts to combat these challenges. NGOs and local organizations are working tirelessly to educate communities about sustainable practices and climate resilience. I've seen firsthand the determination of individuals coming together to plant trees and restore mangroves, recognizing that they have a role to play in protecting their environment. Yet, the scale of the problem is overwhelming, and the responsibility often falls disproportionately on the shoulders of those who contributed the least to the crisis. The international community must step up and support Bangladesh in its fight against climate change. It's not just about aid, it's about justice and recognizing the rights of those who are most affected by global warming. The time for action is now, before it's too late. Human rights and civil liberties Living in Bangladesh, I've always been acutely aware of the delicate balance between authority and freedom. It's no secret that human rights violations occur here, often under the guise of maintaining order. The government has a tendency to suppress dissent, and it's not unusual to hear about journalists and activists facing intimidation or even imprisonment for simply expressing their views. I often find myself reflecting on how stifling it must be to live in a society where the very act of speaking out can lead to severe repercussions. The voices of the people are often drowned out by the fear of retribution, and it's heartbreaking to see how this affects the fabric of our society. As I walk through my neighborhood, I see people engaged in conversations, but there's an unspoken awareness that certain topics are off limits. The chilling effect of government surveillance looms over us. People often choose to remain silent rather than risk their safety. It makes me think about the sacrifices made by those who dare to challenge the status quo. Their bravery is commendable, yet it's disheartening to know that they often pay a heavy price for their courage. The lack of freedom of expression stifles creativity and innovation, leaving us trapped in a cycle of conformity. Moreover, the situation for marginalized groups, including ethnic minorities and the LGBTQ community, is even more precarious. Discrimination runs deep, and often, the laws that are supposed to protect these individuals are either poorly enforced or non-existent. I've seen firsthand the fear in the eyes of those who belong to these groups, knowing that their very existence is often met with hostility. It's a harsh reality that challenges the notion of a just and equitable society, and it leaves me questioning what steps can be taken to foster a more inclusive environment. In conversations with friends and family, we often discuss the need for reform. We dream of a Bangladesh where everyone's rights are respected and upheld, where diversity is celebrated instead of suppressed. It's a tall order, but I believe that change is possible. Grassroots movements are gaining traction, and there's a growing awareness of the importance of civil liberties. I hold on to hope that future generations will be able to live in a country where they can express themselves freely and without fear. However, the road to achieving these fundamental rights is fraught with challenges. The entrenched power structures resist change, and the fight for human rights often feels like an uphill battle. Yet, I find solace in the resilience of those who continue to push for justice and equality. Their determination inspires me to remain vigilant and engaged in the struggle for a better Bangladesh, one where the rights of every individual are respected and protected. Life in rural communities. When I think about life in rural Bangladesh, I'm struck by the stark contrast to the bustling urban areas. Growing up in a small village, I've witnessed the beauty of our landscapes, but I've also seen the struggles that come with rural living. The daily realities of my neighbors are often marked by hard work and perseverance. Agriculture is the backbone of our economy, but it's a tough life. Farmers toil under the sun, battling the elements, and their livelihoods are heavily dependent on unpredictable weather patterns. I can't help but admire their resilience, but it pains me to see how little support they receive. Access to basic services is another hurdle that rural communities face. While urban centers may have hospitals and schools, in the village, we often rely on makeshift clinics and informal education. I remember when a school was built in my village, it was a cause for celebration. However, the lack of qualified teachers and resources meant that the quality of education left much to be desired. Many children, especially girls, are forced to drop out and help their families instead. The cycle of poverty continues, and it feels like a betrayal of the potential these young minds hold. Infrastructure is another pressing issue. Roads are often in disrepair, making it difficult for villagers to access markets or seek medical help. During monsoon season, it's not uncommon for entire villages to be cut off from the outside world. I've seen the panic in my community when floods threaten our homes and livelihoods. The government's response often feels inadequate, and we are left to fend for ourselves. The solidarity among villagers is strong, but it shouldn't have to be this way. We deserve better, and it's frustrating to see the neglect of rural areas in favor of urban development. Despite these challenges, there's a sense of community that binds us together. Neighbors look out for one another, and there's a shared understanding of the struggles we face. I cherish the moments spent under the stars, sharing stories and laughter with friends and family. In these moments, the harsh realities fade away and we find solace in our shared humanity. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there's beauty in our connections and traditions. Looking ahead, I can't help but feel a sense of urgency for change. Rural communities like mine need more attention and support from the government and society as a whole. We must advocate for better access to education, healthcare, and infrastructure. I believe that with collective effort, we can uplift our communities and break the cycle of poverty. It's a daunting task, but I hold on to the hope that one day, the struggles faced by rural Bangladeshis will be acknowledged and addressed. Women and gender. As a man living in Bangladesh, I often find myself reflecting on the role of women in our society. It's a complex topic, and one that evokes a mix of admiration and frustration. Women here possess an incredible strength and resilience, often shouldering the burdens of family and community. Yet, their contributions are frequently overlooked or undervalued. I've seen women work tirelessly, balancing household responsibilities with jobs, and still, they face discrimination at every turn. It's disheartening to think about the systemic barriers that hold them back. Gender-based violence is a pervasive issue that casts a shadow over our society. I can't count the number of times I've heard stories of women facing harassment or worse. It's a chilling reality that many live in fear, knowing that their safety is not guaranteed. Conversations about consent and respect are often brushed aside, leaving many women to suffer in silence. I find myself grappling with the role that men must play in addressing this issue. It's not enough to be an ally. We must actively challenge the behaviors and attitudes that perpetuate violence against women. Education is another area where disparities are evident. While there has been progress in increasing girls' enrollment in schools, many still face obstacles that hinder their learning. Cultural norms often dictate that girls should prioritize household duties over education. I've witnessed the disappointment in the eyes of young girls who dream of becoming doctors or engineers, but are forced to abandon their aspiration. It's a tragedy that robs them of their potential and reinforces the cycle of inequality. We must advocate for policies that support girls' education and empower them to pursue their dreams. In discussions with friends, we often ponder how to create a more equitable society. The conversation usually leads to the importance of involving women in decision-making processes. Their voices must be heard and their experiences valued. It's crucial to challenge the patriarchal structures that dominate our society and create spaces where women can thrive. I believe that by amplifying their voices, we can foster a culture of respect and equality. Ultimately, the journey toward gender equality is a collective one. It requires all of us men and women to confront our biases and challenge the status quo. I'm hopeful that as more people recognize the importance of gender equality, we can begin to dismantle the barriers that hold women back. A more just society is within reach, and I'm committed to playing my part in making it a reality. Together, we can create a Bangladesh where everyone, regardless of gender, can flourish and contribute to our collective future. Education and access to knowledge. When I think about education in Bangladesh, I can't help but feel a mix of hope and frustration. On one hand, there are incredible initiatives aimed at improving literacy rates and providing access to schooling for children. On the other hand, the challenges are colossal. For many, especially in rural areas, the closest school might be miles away, and families often prioritize work over education. I remember a conversation I had with a local teacher who passionately described the struggle to keep students engaged when their families depended on them for labor. It's a heartbreaking reality that highlights how intertwined education and economic necessity are. The quality of education itself is another hurdle that cannot be overlooked. Many schools are underfunded and overcrowded, with insufficient resources to provide a proper learning environment. I encountered a group of students who, despite their eagerness to learn, had to share textbooks and sit on the floor in a dilapidated classroom. It made me realize that even when education is accessible, it doesn't always equate to a quality experience. The curriculum often lacks relevance and fails to prepare students for the realities of the job market, leaving them ill-equipped to navigate their futures. Moreover, the impact of social class cannot be ignored. Children from wealthier families have access to private tutoring and better schools, while those from poorer backgrounds are left to fend for themselves in a system that seems to prioritize profit over potential. I met a young girl who was passionate about science and dreamed of becoming a doctor, but her dreams felt distant and unrealizable due to her family's financial struggles. It was a stark reminder of how education can be a privilege rather than a right in many parts of the world. Another aspect that complicates access to education is the cultural stigma surrounding certain subjects, especially for girls. In some areas, families may discourage young women from pursuing education, believing that their primary role is in the home. I spoke with a local activist who is working tirelessly to change these perceptions, advocating for girls' education and empowerment. It's inspiring to see individuals who refuse to accept the status quo and are dedicated to making a difference, even when the odds are stacked against them. Finally, technology presents both challenges and opportunities in the educational landscape. While the digital divide is significant, with many lacking access to the internet, there are also innovative efforts to bridge this gap. I learned about mobile learning initiatives that are reaching remote areas, providing educational content through smartphones. These developments give me hope that, despite the many barriers, the future of education in Bangladesh can evolve and adapt, creating pathways for knowledge and growth that were previously unimaginable. Public health and access to care. When discussing public health in Bangladesh, it becomes apparent that access to health care is a critical issue that affects millions. The country's healthcare system is often overburdened, with limited resources and an inadequate number of healthcare professionals. To meet the needs of the population, I once visited a community clinic that was supposed to cater to hundreds of families, but was severely understaffed and lacking essential supplies. It's disheartening to see individuals seeking help, but being turned away due to the sheer volume of patients and limited resources. In rural areas, the challenges are even more pronounced. Many people live far from medical facilities, and the journey to receive care can be a daunting task. I met a mother who had to walk several hours to take her sick child to a hospital, only to find that the facility was ill-equipped to handle her child's needs. This experience underscored the importance of not only access to health care, but also the quality of care that is available once someone arrives at a facility. Moreover, issues like sanitation and clean water significantly impact public health. I spoke with local health workers who highlighted how preventable diseases, such as diarrheal diseases, wreak havoc in communities due to poor hygiene practices and lack of access to clean water. It's a vicious cycle without adequate health care. People cannot recover from illnesses, which in turn affects their ability to work and provide for their families. The interconnectedness of these issues is a reminder of how public health cannot be viewed in isolation. It's a complex web of factors that requires a multifaceted approach. Mental health is another significant area that often gets overlooked. In a society where discussing feelings and mental health struggles is still stigmatized, many suffer in silence. I encountered individuals who felt trapped by their circumstances, unable to seek help due to societal pressures, and a lack of understanding around mental health issues. Activists and NGOs are beginning to shine a light on this important aspect of health, advocating for better resources and awareness, but there is still a long way to go. Lastly, the role of international organizations and NGOs cannot be diminished. They often step in to provide much-needed support and resources, but their efforts can sometimes create a dependency rather than a sustainable solution. I've seen firsthand how these organizations can empower communities by providing training and resources, but I also worry about the long-term implications of relying heavily on external support. It's a delicate balance that requires careful consideration and collaboration with local leaders and communities to develop solutions that are both effective and sustainable. Activism and social movements. Activism in Bangladesh is a vibrant tapestry of voices and efforts aimed at enacting change on various fronts. The role of NGOs and grassroots organizations is particularly noteworthy, as they often serve as the backbone of social movements. I have had the privilege of witnessing the passion and dedication of activists who are tirelessly working to address issues ranging from environmental justice to women's rights. Their determination is infectious and serves as a reminder of the power of collective action. One of the most striking aspects of activism in Bangladesh is the resilience of those involved. I met a group of young activists who were organizing a protest against gender-based violence. Despite facing threats and pushback from conservative factions, their resolve was unwavering. They understood the risks, but felt compelled to speak out against injustices that have been normalized for far too long. Their courage is a testament to the changing tides in society, where more individuals are willing to challenge the status quo and demand accountability. Social media has played a pivotal role in amplifying these movements, providing a platform for voices that were previously marginalized. I observed how hashtags and online campaigns can mobilize thousands, drawing attention to issues that might otherwise go unnoticed. It's fascinating to see how technology has transformed activism, allowing individuals to connect and collaborate in ways that were unimaginable just a decade ago. However, this newfound power also comes with challenges, as activists face online harassment and censorship, highlighting the ongoing struggle for freedom of expression. The intersectionality within activism is another important aspect to consider. Many activists are not only fighting for one cause, but are aware of how different issues are interconnected. For instance, I spoke to a group advocating for environmental sustainability while also addressing the rights of indigenous communities. They recognize that environmental degradation disproportionately affects marginalized groups, and their efforts reflect a holistic approach to social justice. This intersectional lens is vital for creating inclusive movements that consider the diverse experiences and struggles within society. Despite the challenges, there is a growing sense of hope and determination within the activist community. I have seen how small victories can lead to larger shifts in public perception and policy. Whether it's a successful campaign to raise awareness about workers' rights, or a grassroots initiative to provide education on reproductive health, these efforts paved the way for a more just and equitable society. The future of activism in Bangladesh is bright, fueled by the passion and commitment of those who refuse to remain silent in the face of adversity. As we wrap up our journey through the hidden side of Bangladesh, I can't help but reflect on the vibrant culture and the resilient spirit of its people. From the bustling streets of Dhaka to the serene landscapes of the countryside, there's so much more to this country than meets the eye. Did you know that behind every bustling market stall, there's a story waiting to be told? Or that the warm smiles of the locals carry centuries of history and tradition? As we delve deeper into these unseen corners, I invite you to think about your own travel experiences. What hidden gems have you discovered in your adventures? Are there places that change your perspective on life? And speaking of perspectives, I want to hear your thoughts. What aspect of Bangladesh surprised you the most? Let's spark a conversation in the comments below. Remember, curiosity is the key that unlocks the world's wonders. So, if you enjoyed uncovering the layers of this incredible country, imagine what else is out there waiting for you. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows what hidden stories you'll uncover next. Until our next adventure, stay curious,